Welcome to the Elixir podcast, where we ask people from all walks of life and from around the world what their favourite poem is and why it's important to them, why or how it speaks to their heart. If you have a poem that you would like to share and would like to appear on the podcast, please contact me at helenwing@me.com.
日历眼上断了脚的柴门，新年将近，年兽打着痴痴的呼噜声。
Hello and welcome again to the Elixir podcast. Today we're talking to Chen, who's in China, in Beijing. Chen, hello and welcome to the show.
Hello, Helen. It's a great opportunity for me to participate in this activity. Thank you so much.
That's fine. It's fine. It's a privilege for us as well, because you have been translating some lovely Chinese poetry into English, so we can now access it here in England. So which poem have you chosen for us?
I would like to read the poem At Home. It's written by Zuo You, translated by me and Mr. Chen.
Okay, wonderful. Would you like to read the poem to us, please?
Yeah, sure. At home. The calendar has gently closed the broken-cornered wooden gate. With the approaching Chinese New Year, the man-eating monster is snoring with a whistle. A smell like a tongue tree blooms on Grandma's face. In harmony with the sound of brewing tea, she has dropped ashes all over the ground, dropped a poem more magnificent than the snowfall, with enchanting blossoming petals. Winter's passion is also wildly burning on this bleary-eyed morning. The blizzard has occupied my hometown's territory. The kitchen door has just been set ajar. At the sound, finches approach over the crisscrossing path of the countryside. Mid-afternoon snow is falling louder and louder, and the stove fire burns harder and harder, with smoke sweeping out a whitish trail in the firmament. Oh, the paths that are newer the more they are trodden, are trembling with joy while clinging to the earth at this very moment.
That is very, very vivid, very visually vivid. So tell me, why do you like this poem?
Okay, so there are many reasons that I like this poem. First, the author is a good person honored by Shanxi province. He can't hear any sound, but from his imagination, he has added some sound elements to his poem. Also, I like the poem because it's full of Chinese elements. It's so nostalgic. For example, in the second stanza, the poem says, she has dropped ashes all over the ground, dropped a poem more magnificent than the snowfall. It sounds abstract, but actually it's reasonable. Just imagine Grandma was walking around in the kitchen. There was ash all over the ground. So her footprints were like some abstract calligraphy, painting, or even a poem written in a foreign language. So that's why I like this poem very much. It speaks to my heart and makes me wonder the typical scenery in a Chinese countryside. Thank you.
That's a really lovely thought. And, you know, I know in China, many people work a long way away from their hometowns and only get to return maybe once or twice a year home. Mm-hmm. So homesickness in general in China, I think, is very widespread. And even for someone such as you that has gone abroad to study, you must have been very nostalgic for your home while you were away. Is that right?
Yeah. So this poem is part of the home series of Paper Republic. So Paper Republic is dedicated to promote Chinese literature in translation to the English world.
Mm-hmm.
So it publishes one series of literary work in translation every year. So this year the theme is home. Zuo Yu's poem was selected from many submissions. He is a Superman. I believe he's a Superman. He is handicapped, but he lives in another city from his hometown, and he has not only survived but also has thrived. So he is a famous poet and has taught more than 0.1 million students poetry and Chinese.
Wow. He's Zuo You is a deaf poet, isn't he?
Yeah, yes.
And in Britain at the moment we have a very famous deaf poet called Raymond Antrobus. It's fascinating actually because the view you get from the deaf world is this incredible appreciation of the succulence of words and of the sounds of words. So actually, maybe we should put us while you're in contact with Raymond Antrobus. I think they would get on very well.
Okay.
He
So
lives in
you
he
you
lives in
yeah.
London.
So you can see, so you added some sound elements to this poem. His imagination is amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah, incredible. Have you read any other poems by Zuo You?
Mr. Chen and I have also translated about a dozen poems
Hmm.
by Zuo You.
Yeah.
So we have submitted those poems to the world's famous journals. Actually, Zuo You has been published by some top journals in the world, such as
Hmm.
the Paris Review.
Yeah, this is wonderful, and it's really nice to hear voices coming from China. Recently, we
Mhm.
had a podcast about a poet from one of the Misty poets, Ting. So it's really nice to have a contemporary Chinese poet in our podcast. So, Chengdu, could you read us the poem again so we can listen to it according to how you have seen it?
Okay. At home, the calendar has gently closed the broken cornered wooden gate. With the approaching Chinese New Year, the man-eating monster is snoring with a whistle. A smell like a tongue tree blooms on Grandma's face. In harmony with the sound of brewing tea, she has dropped ashes all over the ground, dropped a poem more magnificent than the snowfall, with enchanting blossoming petals. Winter's passion is also wildly burning on this bleary-eyed morning. The blizzard has occupied my hometown's territory. The kitchen door has just been set ajar at the sound finches approach over the crisscrossing path of the countryside. Mid-afternoon snow is falling louder and louder, and the stove fire burns harder and harder, with smoke sweeping out a whitish trail in the firmament. Oh, the paths that are newer, the more they are trodden, are trembling with joy while clinging to the earth at this very moment.
It's wonderful, actually. There's something incredibly surreal about the way that he expresses himself, especially that idea of the snow becoming louder and louder, because we normally associate snow with deadening sound, you know? So it's a really unique vision and so vivid, such a vivid picture of that day in his grandma's kitchen. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So Chengdu, would you like to read it to us in Chinese?
Sure. 家中日历眼上断了脚的柴门，新年将近，年兽打着痴痴的呼噜声。外婆的脸上露出油桐的笑容，喝着煮茶声，落下一地灰烬， 落下一首大雨雪的诗，它开出妖艳的花瓣，冬天的激情也在肆意燃烧。这睡眼惺忪的凌晨，大雪已经倾尽故乡最后的疆域。楚门刚刚虚开，雀鸟闻声，与阡陌乡野渐靠渐拢。雪在午后越下越响，炉火越烧越旺，炊烟扫开一条白茫茫的天路。这些愈走愈新的路啊，此时此刻紧紧贴着大地，幸福的颤动。
Wow. Thank you very much for reading that. You read it beautifully in Chinese too. So Chen, are you a poet yourself? Or do you just translate poetry? You are a poet yourself. And what sort of poetry do you write? Do you write all of this type of pastoral poetry?
Actually, sometimes I write surreal poetry, and I like abstract poetry. So, my poems are abstract.
They're abstract poems, are they?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I'd really like to see some sometime. Maybe you could come on and talk about your own poems at one point. You know, the more I talk to people from around the world, ordinary people in ordinary jobs, the more I find that people read poetry. And it's not just something that people do as part of an academic career. It's not something that only very, very intellectual people do it. People do it from all walks of life. So what's your job? What job do you do in China?
I'm a translator. I translate from Chinese to English. So I have published a poetry collection by Yan An, translated by me and Mr. Xishen Chen, published by Tax Price. Mr. Xishen Chen and I are also translating some other poetry collections and the short story collections.
And are they being published in China, those collections, or are they published abroad?
They are published in the United States.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because last time I was in Beijing, there were far fewer bookshops selling books in English these days. Seems to have become less popular. So, Chen, thank you so much for talking to us about this poem and about the poet, Zuo You. I will do my best to make sure that the London-based deaf poet, Raymond Antrobus, listens to this podcast, and hopefully will get in contact with your poet. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for helping us with this.
That's okay. That's okay. And thank you so much for making the time to come onto the podcast.
Thank you for giving me this precious opportunity.
That's okay.
I greatly appreciate it.
For our listeners, remember that you can find the English and the Chinese version of this poem on the Elixir page of my website, helenwing.com. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye. If you're a regular listener and are enjoying the podcast, it would mean the world to me if you could hit the follow button on your podcast app. And if you have a moment, leave a review and a 5-star rating. Remember, you can find the poems that feature in each episode on my website, helenwing.com. Thanks for listening.